All right. Hello, everyone. Hello, hello. Give us another 10 seconds to let people join and get on the call or get on the live so we can get started. All right. Okay, we're going to get started. We're going to jump right in because I've got a lot to talk about today. So thank you for being here. If you're watching the replay, thank you for watching the replay. And I'm so glad that you're here. I'm super excited to be spending this next, I was going to say half hour, but this is probably going to go over a little bit because I have a lot to say on this topic. I did try to trim it down a little bit, but I feel like there's just important things that need to be said and shared. So yeah, I'm super excited to be talking about how to manage your energy as an introvert. To maximize your presence in your relationships and when you're getting out there to create or meet new people to create new relationships. So this is the second in a 3-part series that I'm calling Confidently Cultivating Connections as an Introvert. And in part 1, which was last week, I talked about how to leverage your comfort zone, how to leverage using your comfort zone to get out and meet new people, because I don't believe that you have to get out of your comfort zone to grow and evolve and meet people. So I talked about that last week. If you missed it and you want to learn more about that, let me know and I can send over a replay. But today we're going to continue the conversation and we're going to get into what I feel like is the number one most important thing for introverts to learn, not just when it comes to meeting people and creating new relationships, but just in general in their lives, just in your overall daily well-being. This is the number one thing that you need to learn. And this is understanding your energy. Because for introverts, everything outside of ourselves siphons off our energy at different degrees. Some things do it quickly, some do it a little bit more slowly. But yes, this is super, super important. And hi Sarah, hi Christy, so glad you guys are here. So yeah, if we don't learn how to manage our energy, if we don't understand our energy and we don't learn how to manage it, then we are not going to function optimally as human beings. So this is super, super important. So today I'm going to be talking about this specifically within the realm of relationships. I'll go a little bit general for some things, but I will be tying it back into relationships. So whether it's meeting new people or maintaining and sustaining your existing relationships. So why are we here? Well, I shared this last week, so I'm going to repeat it again because I think it bears repeating. But when we think about getting out and meeting new people and creating relationships, it's not easy. It's hard. It's scary. And you know what? I think that's even true for extroverts. I don't think that this is exclusive for us as introverts, but it can feel really uncomfortable to get out and meet people authentically and confidently so that they get to know you. And I think this is especially true, though, as an introvert, because I think that we have a vast misunderstanding collectively as a society around what it means to be an introvert, even amongst introverts. So introverts are trying to go against their nature and put themselves out there, step out of their shell, be more extroverted, all of these things that honestly, they end up costing you your confidence and they end up leaving you energetically drained, which is why we're talking about this today. Because what we're here to learn is how to go about meeting new people and connecting with them in a way that is meaningful, which is super important for introverts, but also in a way that allows you to meet them authentically, that fuels your confidence and doesn't leave you exhausted, all without having to fake it as an extrovert. So what I'm going to be talking about today is, one, why it's important to be aware of your energy, to understand your energy, and to manage your energy. Then I'm going to be sharing an overview, a very high-level overview of how our energy works as an introvert, how some of our biological differences between us and extroverts, because I think that's really important for you to understand. That'll help you to start accepting this as part of yourself and not judging yourself for it. And then finally, I'm going to explain why staying within your comfort zone conserves your energy, because that's really important. So I touched on that a little bit last week, but I'm going to talk about that a little bit more today, specifically with the energy piece. So before we get started, if you are new to me, if you've never been to one of my lives before, thank you again for being here. I just want to introduce myself. I am Vicki Regina. I like to say that I am a hardcore but proud, hardcore and proud introvert. I'm a certified mindset and confidence coach for introverts. And one of the things that I am most passionate about when it comes comes to working with introverts is this topic of energy. Because and when I say energy, I'm talking about like having enough juice in the tank to actually, make it through the day. So this is super important because we need that. This is like it's like our internal battery. And I know what it's like as an introvert to feel like we're limited, or I'm limited because I'm an introvert. I spent years feeling that way. I know what it's like to be drained from being around lots of people, feeling the pressure to be around lots of people, and then, just feeling guilty for feeling so drained, or feeling like I want to be, off by myself somewhere. I've had years where I felt, yeah, I'm just wired wrong. There's something wrong with me. But once I started to understand more about introversion, and I started to recognize that it's not a disadvantage, I am not wired wrong. It's actually a lot more common in our society than we realize. In fact, most people in our society are introverted, not extroverted. It's just most people don't understand it or recognize it or realize it. But once I was able to understand all of that, I was able to start seeing this whole energy thing differently. And that's when I was able to start learning the secrets to managing my energy. And that's what really started to transform everything in my life. So I became a lot more confident because I was standing up for my needs. I was making priorities around where my energy was. I was setting boundaries. So I was more focused. I was more productive. And surprise, surprise, I had more energy. So this energy piece is at the heart of all the work that I do with my clients, because it's such an important piece. You've got to understand this piece to really feel a lot more confident and just be able to show up as yourself in your life and in your relationships. But I do also focus on helping my clients to cultivate those relationships that they're craving, but they feel resistant to get out to create. Because one, they feel like they're not sure how to do it. They don't know what to say. They're afraid of being judged or rejected, or they just feel like it's so exhausting that they just don't even want to bother with it. Like, been there for all of that, totally understand it. And I love to help my clients turn like a 180 on that and see it from a completely different perspective. So I help them to embrace their quiet nature by understanding their introversion. I help them to create their custom energetic blueprint, all so they can get out there and create those relationships that they desire, all from the comfort of their, what I like to say, their cozy corners. And this is all super important because as much as we love being alone as introverts, and hey, I love being like spending time alone. We are still humans and we still need human connection. But I don't think that in order to have that human connection, I don't believe that we have to I don't believe that we have to sacrifice our needs or our preferences as an introvert. I do believe that those can coexist together and work well together. So really quickly, before I get into the meat of today, I want to share a little story about managing my energy within my own current relationship. So I am very self-aware when it comes to my energy. This is something I've been working on for a number of years. It's not even something that I consciously think about anymore. I'm just always gauging where my energy is and adjusting what I'm doing, or what my plans are, so that I don't end up drained and exhausted and overextended. I've gotten really, really, really good at that. But I'm an imperfect human and I get it wrong sometimes. So last Thanksgiving, that was a busy week. I normally have, coaching calls on like Thursday, Friday. So I had to move those to Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So my Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday was busier than what I normally have for those 3 days. I was also, prepping for the holidays. And the night before Thanksgiving, my best friend, she lives down in Atlanta. I live here in Connecticut. She had, the weekend before Thanksgiving, she had an unexpected death of a close family member. And so the night before Thanksgiving was the first time she had some availability for us to get on a call and talk. So she kind of pinged me last minute. She's like, "Are you free?" And I was like, "Absolutely," kind of dropped everything. And we ended up being on the phone for a long time. And I didn't get to bed that night until I think it was like 1:30, 1:45 in the morning, which is very late for me. I'm normally an early to bed, early to rise kind of person. But I wasn't too worried about it because I was like, well, I can sleep in a little bit on Thanksgiving morning. I've got the rest of the weekend off. Um, and when it comes to like Thanksgiving Day, even though I was going to be spending the day with my boyfriend's family, there's a lot of them, but this was like my sixth Thanksgiving with them. So I know them, I'm comfortable with them. So I don't get drained all that quickly from being with them. So I really wasn't too worried about it. I mean, I knew I was tired, but I missed the signs. I missed a few signs. And so the day of, I don't think I slept as late as I thought I was going to because I'm an early riser. And yeah, I just missed signs. So when I was at his sister's house, I remember feeling like the noise was bothering me more than it normally does when I'm with his family. I look on back on that now and I see that was probably because my energy was already so low. I was more sensitive to it. There were times where normally I feel very comfortable with them, but I remember feeling awkward again, almost like the first year or two that I was going to the events and I was still kind of shy. I kind of felt that awkwardness again, and yeah, so it was just kind of weird. But I totally missed the signs. And as we were after we had finished eating, I was still sitting at the table with a few other people, and my boyfriend was like standing off to the side talking to someone. And that's when I hit what I call the introvert wall. I'm sure if you're an introvert and you're watching this, you have hit that wall, but it's when you're at a social, and let me know in the comments if you have. It's when you're at like a social event or you're around other people, even could be your friends or your family, and you just suddenly shut down. Like it's like all of your senses is like, that's it. I have hit my wall. I wasn't like panicking or anything like that. It was just like I was so on empty that I just needed, I just shut down. And so I call that hitting the introvert wall. It's like my brain gets like like fuzzy, and it's like I can't really like process what people are saying to me. And so right around that time, I happened to make eye contact with my boyfriend, and he immediately was like, "Oh." He's like, "We'll leave in just a few minutes." I don't know. I must have looked terrible, but I don't know how I looked. But we left within probably like 5 minutes. We were out of there. Thank goodness he was, just recognized the signs, was very understanding. He dropped me off at home and he was like, "Get some rest. I'll see you tomorrow night for dinner." Woke up the next day and then I was in what I call the introvert hangover. And I was like, I can't. So I had to message him and be like, "Not going to happen. I'm going to need this entire weekend probably to recover from this, yesterday." And thankfully he was very understanding. But it's been a long time since I've hit that wall and had that whole introvert hangover. And it was it was just something that it hadn't happened in a long time. So my point in telling you this story is that this is an ongoing practice. And as you have more awareness, as you become more aware of your energy, it does become something that's easy to manage. It becomes just part of your life. It becomes something that you don't have to think about. But you're human, I'm human, and perfect storms happen. And another reason that I'm sharing this is that how I responded to this was the key to my recovery, to recovering faster. So I didn't judge myself. I relished the opportunity that weekend to recharge, and I was grateful to have that space. I reflected on what I missed. And so now, this Thanksgiving, I'm going to do some things a little bit differently. I spoke up with myself, or spoke up for myself with my partner. He obviously was aware of things from, times, the years that we've been together. But the point is that I honored where I was. I prioritized what I needed, and I didn't judge myself. I didn't feel guilty or beat myself up, which all of those can be energetic drains on us. So because I didn't do any of that all helped me to recover much, much faster, because I didn't think I was like some horrible person for it. I just recognized it as like, hey, yeah, I pushed myself too far. It's okay. So this is the space that I want to inspire you to get to eventually. But it does start with you, one, being aware of your energy so that you can learn to accept your needs without judgment, without feeling guilty, so that you can then start to prioritize and speak out for your needs. So today we're going to start on the first part. We're going to focus on the first part of that, which is awareness. And now, at the end of this call, I just want to like share with you at the end of this call, or this call, it's not a call, the end of this talk, this live talk, I am going to have I'm going to be telling you about a few free coaching spots that I have. I love to offer some free coaching every month, but these free coaching spots specifically deal with this topic of energy. So if this is something that you're wanting to work on, or by the end of this talk, it's something that you feel inspired to work on, I will be sharing more about that at the end. And again, they're free, a couple of free talks or free coaching sessions. So if that's something you might be interested in, then just be sure to stick around to the end. Or if you do have to jump off, just message me and I can tell you more about that. All right, so let's dive in and start talking about the first topic, about why it's important to be aware of your energy, to manage your energy when you are getting out and meeting new people and trying to create new relationships, and even just within your own relationships, trying to maintain those and sustain them. So managing your energy is, again, the most important thing you can do for your well-being as an introvert. It's also one of the things I feel like not a lot of people talk about. I mean, they talk about like setting boundaries, which is definitely part of it. But unless you understand your energy and you understand your own energetic flow and you understand why you are the way you are, it's going to be hard to set those boundaries. So when you understand it, then that's when you can start to take ownership of your energetic needs. And that's when you feel like you're more in control of your life. So the reason that this is so important for us as introverts is because of where we source our energy. So I'm probably not telling you anything new here. If you're an introvert, you know this, but we source our energy from being alone, from being by ourselves. I mean, we can get it from being around some of our closest people, but really the best way for us to recharge is to turn inward, to be able to get lost in our thoughts, to be able to get, lost in a good book, journal, whatever it is. That alone time is how we recharge. Being in quiet, calm, familiar environments also helps to recharge us because it calms down our nervous system, which is really important because this is how we are designed to be. We are biologically, when you look at introverts and extroverts, science has shown, researchers, that biologically there are differences. So it's just how we're wired. So this is why we can't just magically become an extrovert. We can't, and we shouldn't have to. We shouldn't be expected to do that. I always tie it to like how like 100 years, maybe more than 100 years ago, when kids who were left-handed and their teachers used to try to make them be right-handed. I mean, I think we can all like agree how absolutely barbaric that is. It's kind of the same thing. Like when people are expecting us to just be extroverted, it's kind of the same thing. We can't just be that way when that's not how we're wired. So I'm going to touch a little bit more on that as we get further into the talk today. But that's just why it's so important, because our world is not designed to support how we as introverts gain energy. It's designed to support how extroverts gain energy. So active environments, lots of socializing, lots of, talking things through and meetings and gatherings and just all the, the activity and the people. That's what they need to be able to recharge. And that's fine. That's how they are biologically designed. And that is beautiful. But it's not how we are. And because this world, because this extrovert ideal is what's best understood in this world, and that goes back for over 100 years, it's what's valued. And so it's what's assumed to be the socially acceptable way to be, which means we as introverts, we have to take ownership of understanding what we need and speaking up for it. So when we think about this from the lens of relationships, this is why sometimes relationships can feel really challenging for introverts, because we do need to be alone to recharge. And that can be difficult for people to understand. And it can even make us feel bad. It's not necessarily understood by other people in our lives. And sometimes, not even by you as an introvert if you haven't had the opportunity to learn more about this. And so this is why for a lot of introverts, they kind of just dismiss what their needs are. They just say, okay, you know what, I just got to suck it up and deal with this. And they end up feeling exhausted, frustrated, overextended, overstimulated. They might feel misunderstood and sometimes even invisible because they're denying what their needs are, thinking that's what they're supposed to do. So when you understand your energy, why you are the way you are, what you need, why it's not selfish, that's when you can start to manage your energy with intention, and you can start to communicate that to others. Because when you do manage your energy, you can be more present in your relationships. You can give more to your relationships. It means that you're a better parent, a better partner, a better sister, better friend, a better teammate. And when I'm talking about maximizing your presence in relationships, what I mean by that is that you're able to, when you are with your people, you're able to like be 100% there with them and focused on them so that you, but you're, so you're not like sitting there exhausted, burnt out, zoned out, or like just wishing you could get 15 minutes alone or you were going to scream because you just need that time alone. When you are recharged, you don't feel that way and you can just fully be with them. You can fully be present with them. All right, so now that we've talked about why it's important to take ownership of managing your energy, I want to talk about how you're basically wired as an introvert. So, just so you have a little bit more understanding, so that it helps you to start to accept this as part of you and that you can start to take measures to honor that part of you. So, I love to use when I'm describing how our energy works as an introvert. I'm very visual. I like to use metaphors. I like to use a cell phone to describe how our energy works as introverts because everybody gets cell phones, right? Like we all have one. We were all like, have them. You guys probably have them sitting right next to you right now. We know how cell phones work. So if you're like most people, I know I charge my phone overnight while I'm sleeping. So when I wake up first thing in the morning, my phone is at 100%. The battery is at 100%. But as I go through the day, as you go through your day, what happens? The battery starts to drain. And sometimes, the more you use your phone, the faster the battery drops, right? Or, if you're if you're watching videos, then it drops even faster. If you're just like checking emails throughout the day, then, your battery's going to last a lot longer. So some days when you go to bed at night and you put your phone down on the charger to recharge, some days your battery might be at 85% if you barely used it. Some days your battery is going to be at 25%. Some days it's going to be almost on zero. Some days you're going to have to you're going to be scrambling to find a charger during the day to charge it because you've been using it more. And then other days, again, you're barely using it. So you don't have to worry about that. So we understand that is how, phones work. It's how batteries work. That's pretty, makes sense. But, and there's also one more thing about the battery on phones and the draining. There's also little sneaky things that make your battery drain faster that sometimes I don't know if you've ever picked up your phone and like, wait a minute, why is this on like 40% and I barely used my phone today? And it's because, and I don't know if anybody else is like this either, but sometimes when that happens to me, I go and look on my phone and I've got like maybe 50 apps that are open and I have to remember to go through and like close them all out because when those are open and they're running in the background, they're draining the energy. So that's another thing we have to be aware of with our phones. So when we're looking at like introverts and how our energy works, it's very similar. I mean, we're not obviously machines, but it's similar for the purpose of this metaphor. So when you wake up in the morning, you might not be at 100% every day. Most of my clients, when I start working with them, they're not. The goal is to get them closer to that when they wake up in the mornings. But for the purpose of this conversation, let's just assume that when you wake up in the morning, you're at 100%. And then as you go through your day, what happens? Your energy starts to drain. The more you're around people, your energy drains faster. Maybe you've got a big meeting or a presentation, your energy drains even faster. Some days, if you've got a day that's mostly by yourself, then what happens? Your energy lasts a lot longer. It doesn't drain. So just like the phone, depending on what you're doing during the day, your energy is going to drain faster. It's not going to, or it's barely going to drain. Or if you are doing something that is refueling, it's kind of like plugging your phone in to recharge it. You're recharging yourself during the day. So it's really important for us as introverts to have clarity around what drains you, what slowly drains you, what rapidly drains you, and what recharges you. Because when you know all of those things, you can start to approach your day, your week, your month, whatever, with a lot more awareness and a lot more intention so that you don't end up on, I like to say in the red zone, because when your battery on your phone gets down to like 20%, it gets like red. So you don't end up on the red zone on a daily basis. You're able to manage it better. Now, one thing to be aware of, I talked about those sneaky apps on the phone that drain the energy in the background. We have those too, and that's our thoughts. Now, I'm not going to get into that today. That's something I work on a lot with my clients, but any of those judgy, negative, self, the crappy thoughts that we have in our brain, those suck energy. So you have to be aware of those too. So even if you're cleaning up the energy drains elsewhere, like externally, if you don't clean up the thoughts, you're still going to be like leaking energy throughout the day. So just something to be aware of. Now, there are some biological reasons as to why we are the way we are as introverts. I'm not going to go deep in the weeds on this. I'm going to try to give a very high level on these. It's really just more to give you some awareness. If you're interested in more details, let me know. I have a recording from a prior talk that goes into more details, but I just want to introduce you to this so that you understand this isn't something that you can just like overcome. It's just who you are. So there are three things that I want to touch on here briefly in terms of like how biologically introverts differ from extroverts. And the first is one, neurotransmitters. The second is with our nervous system. And the third is actually like in our brain. So, neurotransmitters, they're basically just chemicals in our body. So, you've probably heard of dopamine. That's a neurotransmitter, that's a chemical. Not going to get into those specific ones that relate to this, but just know that there are some of these chemicals that introverts and extroverts respond to differently, that introverts and extroverts are more sensitive to. So, some of these chemicals are released when you're in like very social, active environments. Some of these chemicals are released when you're in very quiet, calm, when you're able to turn internally. That's when those chemicals get released. So, as you might imagine, extroverts tend to be attracted to activities that release that external, the chemical that gets fired up when they're in like the external social activities. Introverts are naturally drawn to activities that release the chemical that comes with those solo, interreflective, those type of activities. The second thing with our nervous system is that studies show that the nervous system of introverts is more sensitive than the nervous system of extroverts. So it's why we are more overstimulated when we are in really noisy, busy, very crowded environments. There's just a lot to take in, and our nervous system is more sensitive to that. So, and that's also why we need more time to recharge, because we've got to calm down that nervous system. And then the third thing is our brains. So in the prefrontal cortex, which is right here at the front of our brain, that's the part of the brain that's responsible for analysis, deep thinking, logic, decision making, abstract thought. The gray matter in the brains of introverts is thicker. The gray matter is where the processing is happening, the analysis is happening. And because of this is why introverts tend to be really, really good at overthinking. We have a lot of thoughts that are, our brain is just very active there. So we have a lot of thoughts that are happening. And this is why for introverts, it's one of the reasons we tend to be a little quieter, because we just have such a lot going on. But also when we're in conversations, it's why we need to think before we speak. It's why introverts are not necessarily the best at being able to like think of things on the spot. It can be a little bit harder. It feels a little more challenging. And so again, just something to be aware of. It's not a bad thing. It's just a different way that we're wired. There are advantages that come with that versus, not being able to think deeply all the time. So all of this again is just to say that we are biologically wired differently, but not incorrectly. So this is why we can't just be more extroverted. So when you think about going out and meeting new people, if you're trying to approach it from the perspective of be more extroverted, that's not going to work for you. And you don't need to do that. Again, we are wired differently, but not incorrectly. So this different wiring gives us different strengths and gifts. So we don't need to change who we are. We just need to change how we see ourselves so that we can embrace it and that we can really accept ourselves and lean into that and use those gifts and strengths. So when we're thinking about relationships and how our energy is impacted, we need time alone to recharge. It's not selfish, but it can feel challenging when you're in a relationship. Thinking before you speak, that can feel a little difficult when you're in a heated conversation or an argument. Not enjoying large social gatherings. If you are in your friends or your partner or your family or tend to be extroverted, that can be difficult to balance that. Or maybe as introverts, we need to be able to, in order to focus, we need to be undistracted. We need to be not distracted. So if you have a house full of kids or a partner that's like, hey, where's this? Where's that? Every 5 seconds, it can be really challenging to get that focus, the non-interrupted time to really focus on things that you're working on. And this can all feel really challenging within a relationship because again, the nature of relationships is to what? Engage with people. And so if others don't understand this, it can be really hard to explain it to them, to try to tell them why you are the way you are, especially if you don't understand it yourself. And that can just end up making you feel very isolated and very alone. So, really quickly, I want to give you 3 strategies that you can start to, or tips that you can start to implement so that you can begin to effectively manage your energy in your relationships. So, the first, I kind of touched on this already, but the first thing is you've got to get really clear on what drains you and what recharges you. Because if you don't know, you're not going to be able to do what you need to do in order to protect your energy. So, that's super, super important. The second thing is once you know that, then you're going to be able to set boundaries to protect your energy. Okay. And then the third thing that can be really helpful is to practice learning how to gauge your energy on a scale. So, and you can use that to communicate. So, you could use like a scale of 1 to 5, you could use a scale of 1 to 10, whatever works best to you. But the idea here is once you get familiar with your energy, you're going to know at any given moment, and you're like, oh, I'm kind of an 8 right now. I feel really good, not too tired, not too drained. Other times you're going to be like, I'm on like a 2 right now. And once you are aware of where you fall on that scale, it's going to not only help you to communicate that to others, but it's going to help you to also set boundaries with yourself. So maybe when you're out at social events, it might be like, man, self, when I feel like I'm hitting a 5, that's when it's time for me to leave. So that way you don't end up absolutely drained. A friend of mine, she was recently telling me her teenage daughters are introverted. And she was telling me how when one of her daughter's friends comes over, they ask her, so what's your energy like today? And her daughter can say, well, I'm at like a 7. And the friend is like, oh, okay. So that's what, like maybe like you had about 2 hours. And the daughter's like, yeah, that sounds about right. And there's no judgment. There's no harsh feelings. It's just it's open communication and understanding. And I thought that was so beautiful. So if you learn to use a scale, it's going to help you and it's going to help others. All right. So now that we've talked about why it's important to take ownership of managing your energy, and I've talked a little bit about why you are the way you are as an introvert, I want to wrap things up by quickly explaining why you are better able to conserve your energy when you are operating from within your comfort zone, which is what part 1 was all about. I talked about that last week, but I wanted to touch on that a little bit with the terms of, or in terms of why it's such a good strategy when you're working with your energy. All right. Because again, I am not a fan of trying to have people force themselves to get out of their comfort zone, especially for introverts, because I think it can be counterproductive for introverts, because you absolutely 100% can grow and evolve from within your comfort zone when you know how to do it. So when people tell you you have to step out of your comfort zone to grow, you don't. As long as you know how to use your comfort zone, then you can really leverage that to you and use that to your advantage. So last week I shared with you that there are 3 different, at least from my perspective, there are 3 different zones or regions that exist within your comfort zone, so that you can leverage your comfort zone. So again, check out last week's video. I can send you the link if you need it. But when you are using your comfort zone, when you're getting out and meeting people and you're leveraging your comfort zone, it's a much more natural and effective way to grow your confidence. You can't grow your confidence when you're faking it as something. So if you're trying to fake it as an extrovert, you're working against your confidence. So they're counterproductive. So it's not going to work. So when you are within your comfort zone, you don't have to fake it as anything. So you can naturally grow your confidence. It's also going to help you to pick activities and events that are more aligned to your gifts and your strengths. That's going to help you to be more of your true authentic self when you're meeting people. And then so that way people get to know the real you, not the fake you. Introverts value deep, meaningful connections. We don't want a lot of superficial relationships. We want a few deep connections. So if you are able to show up right from the start, even if you're nervous, but you're able to be your true authentic self, you're going to be able to attract and create the relationships that you desire a lot more easily. So when it comes to your energy, when you are within your comfort zone, you're not judging yourself like quite so harshly because you're being more true to yourself. So that in itself is going to protect your energy. That right there is going to plug some of those leaks. But also when you are using your natural gifts, your natural strengths, it's easier. So you're going to use less energy. And you're also, whenever you're in your comfort zone, even if you're along the edges and it feels a little uncomfortable, you're still tapping into your confidence. You can still access that because you're being your true authentic self. And again, that's going to slow down the energy, the the drainage of your energy. It'll slow it down. So, with all of that said, if this is something that you struggle with, I did tell you at the beginning that I do have a few free coaching spots that target this. So this month I like to offer free coaching sessions every month because I love to be able to provide that. And this month I'm offering a few 90-minute introvert energetic tune-up coaching sessions. I'm going to throw a link up here really quickly in case you're interested. So you can go there if you're interested. But anyway, in this 90-minute call, I'm going to help you to create a basic energetic blueprint that's going to help you to prioritize the energy boost that's going to help you prevent ending up on empty. It's going to help you to understand your energy leaks so you can start to minimize those. And we are going to talk about those thought patterns that are energy leaks that are draining you, so that we can identify a few of the top ones that are contributing to energy leaks so that you can start to reframe those. So when we finish this 90-minute call, you are going to be able to have more awareness on what drains you so that you can plug those leaks both internally and externally. You're going to have a greater appreciation for what recharges you so that you can actually prioritize those. You're going to have a game plan for honoring your energy so that you feel more energized on a daily basis. And you're going to feel more confident to express your needs so that you can maybe start playing with setting some boundaries. So if any of that's resonating with you, then grab one of, just go to that link that I dropped there. I'll put that in the chat also once we wrap this up. But it's just a small form that you can fill out. It gives me a little bit of information so I can assess whether it's actually a good fit for you or not. And yeah, if it is, then I'll get in touch and we'll get that scheduled, because this is one of the things I get fired up about when I'm working with my clients. It's one of the things I love the most about working with my clients. So I would love to work with you on this if this is something that you struggle with. And again, it's a free call. So, what have you got to lose? Because again, this is all important. I already shared this, but your energy is everything. It's super important. Again, the world is not designed to make it easy for you to recharge. So you've got to do that yourself. So yeah, this is something I'm really, really good at. And if it's something that you struggle with, I would love to help you with that. All right. So next week, we're going to wrap up this 3-part series, and we are going to be drawing it to a close. I'm going to be sharing introvert-friendly ways to initiate conversations with new people. I did some polls on LinkedIn, and this seems to be the number one thing that most people are the most nervous about. So I'm going to be talking about why, as an introvert, it can be helpful to take that initiative and start conversations with new people to create those meaningful relationships that you desire. I'm going to share some common challenges that many introverts face when they're trying to initiate conversations so that you can start to overcome those. And I'm also going to be talking about some mindset shifts and some practical tips that you can use to conquer those fears of approaching new people, starting conversations, keeping the conversation flowing, all so that you can cultivate these new personal and social connections. So it's going to be the same time next week on Thursday. So hope to see you there. But in the meantime, if you have any questions at all about the stuff that I talked about, I know I kind of went over a lot today, but if you have any questions, then feel free to drop those in the chat. Otherwise, you can DM them to me if you don't feel like putting your question on kind of a public forum. I'm happy to answer those through DM, but otherwise, hope that this was helpful, and would love to hear from you on any questions that you have. And thank you so much for being here. All right, so I don't see any questions coming in, which is perfectly fine. If you think of anything later, then again, feel free to reach out to me. But I hope you have a lovely evening, and I will see you back here next week. All right, bye.